things happen. So let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Star Trek. We have just finished watching Star Trek's very own 8th film in the franchise, First Contact, the ultimate Borg action film, the film that took everything up a notch in terms of both TNG and Borg lore in everything, and took it up to the ILM levels of feature film levels and brought us back down to us here reviewing it. How did we feel watching this film? I'm gonna throw it out to the skeptics of the film first, because me and Stars are naturally here just as adoration, just like, oh my god, this is the film of our youth. This is what defined us. Yeah, slow seal clapping. I'm gonna be absolutely unobjective. I want to throw it over to Frank and Otto. Also, we are joined by two very special guests, a long time overtired and Brody below me here. Gentlemen, welcome to the review as honoured guests. How are we all feeling about this film?
Otto, would you like to go first, or would you like me to go?
No, I think I'll go last, because people can tune in every week and hear me. So,
it is a great film. I'm not saying it's not a good film. It's a wonderful next generation film. It introduced the new ship. It looked gorgeous. Everybody, with the exception of Gates, got great moments, which is what we're used to. So it's okay. And it was just nice, but there were problems that I've had with it for 20 years, 30 years. How old is this movie? No. I don't know. However old this movie is.
It's exactly 30 years this year, if I recall.
Yeah, nearly.
Wow.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Oh, shit. Oh.
Feel bad, man.
Feel old. Yeah. And we'll get into it later, I'm sure. But the problem that I've had, that people have talked about on the various internets over time, is we just spent 7 seasons in a movie with Diplomat Picard, and now we get like action hero bloodthirsty Picard, which is just not his MO. But like I said, I give him leeway, because really what this is a giant therapy session for him, coming to terms with everything that had happened in the past and trying to be healed, and healing through taking care of his abuser, if you will. And so I appreciate that. It's just not what's kind of marketed in the past. But outside of that, considering what they had to work with, I was pleased with it. It's not my favorite TNG film. That is Insurrection. But I think it's still nice. And Frakes did a great job directing. But I don't hold it. It does not even get the bronze medal. Unfortunately, it does finish 4th.
I am going to throw this over to one of our two honoured guests. So, Brody, love to hear about your thoughts on this film. How are you feeling about this?
I think you might have been called away. I'm poking him now, so it might be best for overtired.
Brody's gone. Overside. On other honoured guest of this stream and loyal chat user of us, please, how do you feel about First Contact?
I like it. It is probably the best TNG film in my opinion. Wrath of Khan's definitely the best Trek film. Like the First Contact has issues like, how does the time travel work? Why is it like this? Why isn't it like that? That's great for nerds to argue about, which is really fun, which like is bonus points. But like, if you really want to, if like you're your casual audience to like try to think about, then you can walk away, with more questions than answers. But it's enough like wrong to like really be fun for me to argue about. So, but it's so rewatchable. Like Wrath of Khan's a better movie, but it's if I'm gonna sit down and put a movie on, like, is it gonna be Wrath of Khan or First Contact? Probably gonna or be First Contact because it's more rewatchable.
And this is kind of the question: is like, in terms of like how to balance between being a Trek film and a mass market appeal general action film. Does this cross the line too far, or does it sort of play it a little bit safer in general? So I'll hand it over to everyone here. So especially Auto, I feel you've got some sort of thoughts on this, of like how this sort of represents Trek in more sort of the general audience view.
Yeah, I think it actually does what it sets out to do excellently. And that's maybe not gonna be for the most hardcore fans, but when I look especially at, I gotta take shots at New Trek.
Sure.
There are certain elements of New Trek which just cross the line so far into like, this doesn't even look like Star Trek. This is so identifiably Star Trek. It's a different, you're looking at a different section of it. It's way more action than we're used to, but I think it actually, it's very audience servicey sometimes, too much, but I think in a good way. Like some of the assimilate this and the resistance is like they give them catchphrases, they give them dramatic pauses, and it's the kind of thing that you expect from an action movie. And I think it's a good gateway drug to Star Trek for people of that era. Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Stas. Go on. It's time for you to talk.
I was going to say,
yeah, have I? Go on.
well, I was going to say, no, yeah, it absolutely was a great gateway drug for people, because that was what it was for me. Like this and Wrath of Khan and TNG season 1, because it has just enough to catch your attention. Like I feel like, Idle, did you mention that you watched this with your kids and they were interested?
I did.
In it, or was that...
my oldest boy Ben, he was 9 at the time, and I said, I'm just going to put this. I'm going to watch First Contact, and he actually hasn't watched any Star Trek with me, but he was sort of interested in spending time with me. So he wanted to. So he just sat and watched a film, and he actually came out of it and said, "Yeah, I really enjoyed that." So.
Yeah, because it's got all the stuff that someone can latch onto. It's got an identifiable arc that can be told within a 2-hour span. It's got action. It's got a bit of darkness, which kids always love. This is like what is it, like a 12? I think is the rating.
PG-13, I think.
PG-13, right? Yeah. So like
so when I say my son was 9. It's fine.
Well, guess what? I also watched this when I was way too young. But like every kid does that. I feel like it's like it's a coming of age type thing. There's always a movie you watch when you're way too young for it. And it does incredible things for your brain in terms of making you feel like an adult and like expanding your consciousness. And that's what this did for me. Like. What I took away from this movie was that, wow, explosions are cool, or like blood and gore makes things cool. I was like, wow, revenge is like something that can destroy you. Like that's an incredible theme to be able to impart as like part of a really accessible, like it's not like that, it's not as if action movies don't tell that kind of moral all the time. Like revenge is a very common action theme in terms of like grappling with how far is too far. But especially like Star Trek's take on it and grounding it in the literary and like in a very like extremely theatrically Shakespearean performance, it elevates it in that way. So I absolutely do think it makes a lot of concessions to pleasing the audience and keeping the attention, but I don't feel like it loses any of the soul. Like you say, it's still recognizably Trek. Just it's very much like the same kind of like differentiation between the motion picture and the Wrath of Khan, where it's like the Wrath of Khan and the motion picture are very different types of Trek. They're very different types, but they are still both completely acceptable paths to go down, as it were. And like I feel like it's a testament to the franchise that you can do that, and you can, as long as you do it well, you don't risk losing anything. I don't think.
Yeah, and this is very much sort of like the first mass market appeal sort of Trek film that sort of went out there, and like I said, it's sort of.
I wouldn't. I think maybe Voyage Home might be more mass market. The first one in terms of mass market appeal, because it was set. Point.
I'm thinking sort of like generationally as well, because there's a difference between sort of like 1984 where the Voyage Home was out and then 96, because I had no knowledge of the Voyage Home when when I first watched First Contact. I think I was a vague Star Trek fan, but I'd never watched any sort of the TOS stuff. So, but you know, I said during sort of like when we're talking about the sort of pre-show before doing the watch along, me being sort of 12 years old and sort of, you know, just identifying myself with Trek and looking through sort of the magazines, and they're having this TNG film coming up and they were going to deal with the Borg, and I just watched the best of both worlds, and I'd seen like, you know, IQ as well, and sort of having this sort of like the Borg are this amazing menace, and having a whole film deal with that, plus the birth of the Federation, essentially sort of going back and having this time travel story that sort of encompasses like basically the core of what Star Trek is without Gene Roddenberry being there. Is such a sort of revolutionary take as well, because you kind of sort of encompassing, regardless of what you feel about Cochrane, which we'll get onto in a moment, sort of being, you know, James Cromwell's interpretation as a kind of a drunk sort of like money grabbing Cochrane, but like just having this sort of like encompassing feeling that Star Trek is sort of like dealing with sort of like the early periods of and going to approach like how, you know, it happened. But what I want to talk about is how you guys thought about this early version of Cochrane.
You got to throw it specifically. We have too many people
It's
that
so
are going to
terrible.
wait for someone else.
Frank,
Just start picking
I'm
names.
going to go Frank. No, fuck you. I'm going to go Frank.
I appreciate immensely that if we're going to have this, and using the word lightly, this godlike mythical person that we've heard of dating back to TOS, and we will hear of more obviously in future things. But this guy, and we're so used to this utopian world that exists in the future. It's so refreshing to see he's flawed. He's just like me. I'm a drunk. I can't do anything. Well, I'm not a drunk, but if I were a drunk, I know this guy. I'm a degenerate gambler, but I feel like I know him, and we kind of dress the same too. Like it was so nice to see our hero's journey is actually he's kind of like, the world sucks because we just had World War III, and he wants to make it better, but he wants to make it better for himself. He doesn't expose those Federation ideals just yet. And it's so nice to see that, and him coming to terms with, okay, maybe I don't have to be a selfish asshole all the time. I think that was nice. That was a nice little underlying part of the story.
Go on, Stars.
And now you talk.
I was going to say, Stars is on. I can tell he wants to say something. Go on.
Yeah. I think Cochrane is a very interesting character. In that, like, I think that in a way he's a reflection on the fact that Star Trek essentially views, most Star Trek anyway, I think, views humanity and an individual human as essentially good. But it's that circumstances and the life that you've led and the things that have happened to you that will make you cruel or selfish or greedy. And it's interesting seeing Cochrane being exposed to the idea that no, life really can be life can be better. It just takes like concerted work and belief, not only in others but in yourself. And you get to see a slow transformation in him, but it still doesn't feel complete by the end, and I really, really appreciate that. Like, the Cochrane that you see in the bar is still fundamentally the same guy that you have at the beginning of the movie. He's still a guy who drinks, who connects with people on that level. But he's just like slowly starting to believe, and it's like, I appreciate the amount of restraint they have there, while still making him feel emblematic of what the franchise thinks humanity is like. I also just really appreciate all the subtle little world building bits about the Eastern Coalition, Econ, and the World War III. and because it ultimately it doesn't really matter the geopolitical like stuff. What matters is that something horrific has just happened and something beautiful is going to rise out of that, and that's a wonderful message. I also just have to say, like, James Cromwell's like a fucking incredible.
The ship is
for
called the Phoenix, so there you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's all very on the nose. Yeah, but guess what? Like sometimes, yeah. It's like, guess what? Sometimes some text is unnecessary. Sometimes it has to be exactly as on the nose as it is, because it's like and a message like this does not need to be cloaked in subtlety. Life will get better if you put the work into it and believe in other people. I also have to say, like, one thing I do kind of wish we had more of is more of Cochrane and Lily, because they basically have 2 scenes together, and they're very short. I kind of wish you had a bit more of their dynamic together, because they obviously have a lot like of history, clearly, but you don't get to see as much of it. But I always say of movies that if I'm left wanting more because what I had was so good that it's not really a flaw. It's just a case of like my brain wants to fill in the blanks, and I appreciate that.
It's interesting to think about how like Lily would have sort of filled in that part of. So we were talking about like who would have been in the Phoenix if it hadn't been Riker and Geordi. And obviously, one have been Lily, and like how Lily would sort of like filled in that sort of role for Cochrane that would have been sort of like almost an antagonist in the past, and like how they cast her in this film to be sort of like almost the Beverly Crusher for Picard. And we were talking about that in the watch along. So like, right, could you have just filled Lily for Beverly instead? But no, it had to be someone unknown who was out of her element that could call Picard out on her shit. Or on his shit, sorry.
Yeah, I do think that Otto was right that like Crusher could have done it, but it would have been a very different scene. And I don't know that. I think it would have been a very good character moment for Beverly. I don't think it would have been as powerful a moment for the movie in general, because it coming from Crusher, from a 24th century person to another 24th century person, is like a utopian appealing to a utopian, but someone from war-torn 21st century Earth reaching out and inspiring a utopian to be better, there's a real there's juice there. That's something to really be picked apart, and again kind of reinforces the idea of what humanity ultimately is and what Star Trek believes it to be.
Okay, so this film was directed by... Oh, hang on, we've lost someone else as well.
No drubbing like flies.
I was going to say.
All right, let me talk a little bit about Cochrane before we move on. I think Lily probably would have interacted with him like a drunk uncle, where you're kind of tired of his shit, but you can't turn your back on him.
Yeah.
So for whatever that's worth, Cochrane. So I'm writing down nitpicks. I'm writing down best moments, etc. My first best moment pick was Cochrane. I love him in this episode.
Do you know what? Right? Can I just slightly interrupt, because I had a feeling that you would be because you are very much a TOS. You've grown up on TOS. I remember you speaking before about how you loved the TOS version of Cochrane. So it was very surprising me to hear that you actually loved this version of him.
Well, I'm nothing if not a maverick. Actually, because the character is positioned perfectly. I hate contemporary music in my Star Trek, and I don't particularly like montages, but Steppenwolf was not a montage, and he's not a part of Starfleet. He's a fucking drunk from 2060. He can get away with that. The trope, I do like the trope of he's not as he is in his history books. No one ever is. And it's so true to life that you could hit that button over and over again, and I would love it. James Cromwell is a fantastic actor. There's a little bit of nitpick, like how can they afford this giant fucking missile? But okay, if let's say he was employed at some government-funded giant military base, well then he wouldn't be this man, because they wouldn't give the job to someone who behaves like he does. So but you can kind of skirt around that.
Like, it took them 6 months to afford just like the cockpit. You know, they've spent a lot of time just like scrapping and scraping, getting parts together. It really is like a scrappy project that they've just launched into space. He's so natural to me. Especially the kind of the B-roll stuff or the B plot stuff on the planet.
where he doesn't want to be eulogized before he's dead, even though he's a drunk. He's not drinking to forget or to kill the pain or to die. He's just a drunk. And it's a fun take on, because normally, when they put that kind of character into Star Trek, they're doing it for a reason. They're doing either drugs or whatever to kill the pain, and that's not him. And so I find that's another refreshing avenue to him. He works really, because I always complain, I want my Starfleet people professional. Well, it's not Starfleet, so he gets to be however you want him to be. And the fun interactions with him, hot damn, that's heroic. Like, he's got some really good lines.
Never meet your heroes. And,
he enables all the pop culture stuff that you want to appeal to a mass market with that degree of separation. And so I think he's really essential to making that part of the appeal work.
And it's not even like if you were to talk about someone sitting around marketing desk, they'd be like, right, we need someone young in this role. I was like, no, you get James Conrail. And he's there and he loves his old 70s rock and he's a bit of a sort of an out of sorts. It's not even that he's a drunk. Like, the alcohol has nothing to do with it. It's more like he is out of context with this sort of like refined Starfleet sensibilities of the future. The utopia that has been needs something to build from. It's just everyone's shocked that it's built from this.
It's important to establish. It's important to establish that because the movie is called First Contact, and although I think it really misses the mark on what makes First Contact and Star Trek fun, establishing him as such an opposition to the way Vulcans are is actually a great setup. Because even though you don't see a ton of them interacting at the end, when they do, it's like it just clicks instantly. It makes sense.
And in retrospect,
I think he was.
Sorry, Frank. In retrospect as well, like that fits in with as crude as we find Archer in Enterprise, and we have our own complaints there. It kind of fits in with that as well. And Archer is sort of like the spiritual successor to Zephyr and Cochrane in a way. But sorry, Frank, you go on.
No, I was going to say, I think he's perfectly done and written and acted to make young new Trek fans who go to the cinema to see this movie go, oh my God, that's my dad. He's drinking for no reason. He's just sitting here rambling on about some sort of Star Trek. He's dancing to crappy 70s music. He goes outside to take a leak and he runs away from his problems. But when the time comes, he nuts up and he gets the job done. It's like, oh, he's Star Trek's dad. That's what he is.
Essentially, yeah. And no, please.
I think I really love about the movie, and Star Trek never really focused on, even the movie does it, but Star Trek is post-apocalyptic. This is post-World War III. Like, a billion people have died. Like, it's totally fair that, like, you could imagine a pre-World War III Zephyr and Cochrane to be more optimistic, but, like, to have that crushed by World War III and then to, like, have some hope back, seeing what it is. And, like, I like the moment when he's like, it's so small, like, you're supposed to like that. And it's like, he doesn't change as a person, but it's like he's solved a riddle or like something's clicked that he like never quite figured out before. And that's where those seeds are of the utopia that follows. But it's hundreds of years off. So
yeah. So it's actually interesting because, like, kind of jumping off of your point about Star Trek being post-apocalyptic, and also your point, Otto, about how you appreciate like the drunkenness as being part of his character. I don't know if this is part of your Memory Alpha Paul's idol, but if I recall, I don't know if it's in either the novelization or a book that follows on from it. They basically established that part of the reason why, to try and marry the two versions of Cochrane together, they established that like he was artificially aged by like radiation poisoning due to like exposure to like the Warp Project and also to fallout from the nuclear war, and also that in this time period they have like medication implants that basically like take care of stuff like bipolar, and he has one of those.
Okay.
But yeah, this is all from like it's from one of the books. I forget which one. But obviously with like the infrastructure being as it is, he hasn't been able to get a refill for that implant in years, so he has to self-medicate using alcohol. And I feel like those are like it kind of works in Overtired's like thing of like, yes, it's supposed to apocalyptic Star Trek, but I wonder, Otto, how do you feel about that as a, because it's not in the text of the film. I don't think it's contradicted, but but it's like that's how they kind of reconcile it and add background. What are your feelings on that?
I mean, it's already a straight recon because the one from TOS, it comes from Alpha Centauri, is what they say in script. So, you know, I'm a stickler for some things in canon, but this kind of thing I'm really not. And I think what has kind of converted me is watching Robert April from TAS, who was kind of a nothing. Like he had an important place in the lore, but if you actually watch him on screen, he's fine. He's like a one episode guy. But when they bring Strange New Worlds Robert April in, like it doesn't matter what he was. They make him something fun and better. And you know, you're not going to retcon like Geordie LaForge. There's too much there. But to take a one episode character and give him more, I think it's nice. And I actually really like him in Enterprise because he's basically the guy that had 5 cups of coffee and a cold shower, and then they put him in front of a camera. And we're talking paradox, but actually, I love that the pressure put on him in this movie. Like he rises to the occasion in Enterprise. The way he is, the speeches he gives, and he's wearing a suit or whatever, and he almost recreates Reaching Toward the Future. You can kind of draw a line back to where, he kind of turned his life around here, and that's a nice little character through line.
Yeah, and since we've mentioned it a few times, I do love that bit in Regeneration where they mention that Cochrane talked about bionic zombies during like a symposium, but he was drinking. I love that kind of marriage. Yeah, I love the marriage of the two versions of like, he's still utopia, he's still like 2160s like Cochrane, but guess what? Like he still liked to drink and he got a little bit loose around the lip, and it's like I kind of love that. That's like one of my favorite parts of Regeneration. But I think it's a really well constructed character, and it's like I can't think of anyone else I would have cast as Cromwell as Cochrane here. Like Cromwell has such a likable, it's just such a charm and a charisma that seems to come so easily. I'm trying to think of anyone who can replicate that.
It's wild because he's been in Star Trek like multiple times before as well. Like, was it Man of the People? Was that his? No, there was a couple of. There was a TNG episode and there was another episode he was in, and I forget which one they were, but.
He was in the one with the super soldier. Yeah, I forget what the episode's called, but
and also,
he's like the head of the society in that.
Babe Pig and City and all that,
11 months earlier was Babe, and so
wow.
Was it only 11 months? It feels like it's more.
The release, I'm not sure how the filming would have overlapped, but
it's wild. Okay, so this film was directed by none other than Jonathan Frakes, who needs no introduction. Actually, him coming to direct the film is a saga unto itself, because I believe after the commercial success of Generations, which, did some fairly after all the TOS movies having this big crossover, it did some very respectable numbers, and they were looking for someone big to direct the first TNG output of this. No one seemed to want to take us, so they went, all right, fuck it, Jonathan Frakes, and then history was made. So, for much as we can say that Riker only really had one big scene, and that was his scene with Troy as she's slowly getting degeneratively drunk in this episode. So, this is also written by Rick Berman, Brandon Braga, and Ronald D. Moore. Obviously, we know Berman and Braga. Ronald D. Moore, you will know for writing many episodes of TNG, a few episodes of DS9, helming a lot of Voyager, but also being very responsible for a lot of very good seasons of Battlestar Galactica and Outlander in the future. He has done some amazing work.
Well, as I recall, I think he worked mostly on DS9, and then when he worked on the Voyager episodes, he got so frustrated with them not allowing him serialization.
Other way around.
That he was like, fuck this, I'm going to go and make BSG 2004.
Which Battlestar Galactica was basically inspired by Year of Hell, because he said, we need to make this a series, and they went, no, and he went, all right, I'll go take this existing franchise, which does have a hellscape, and I'll make it that.
Frakes. Oh, go ahead.
Please, Frank.
Frakes obviously earned his stripes, and many other Trek alum have done it through the years. But I think, and this is very salient of a point. Literally this week, I I think we've learned over the years that Trek is best entrusted in the hands of people who actually love it and appreciate it and understand it and want it to be for others what it was for them. Right now, we are very fortunate. Obviously, Frakes still very much involved. But there's a young lady named Tawny Newsome who just absolutely nailed some stuff out of the park. And she did it for those same reasons. Terry Metalis in Picard season 3, that entire thing. So I think this was the start of Frakes being at that table of the new entrusted guard of Trek is in their hands and it's safe.
It's interesting to talk about, like, you know, say, right, okay, you're going to put the nerd in the chair. Essentially, you're going to put the person that likes it, and they could be a little bit biased, but I feel like, yeah, you're right. Frakes sort of took that separation to go, like, yeah, I'm in love with this franchise. I know what but also I know what I'm doing. I know about the sort of distinctions. Sorry, the alcohol talking in. The distinctions between being sort of like immersed, being sort of immersed in this subculture, and also, but also having sort of like the perspective to say, right, how can this be marketable to the mass audience? Which I think First Contact does superbly well.
Yeah, and it's like I also have to just give him props of, like, you know, when Nimoy did Search for Spock. I think Search for Spock is very, very well. It's well directed. So is Voyage Home. But I think that in terms of like the movies that have been directed by a cast member, I think this one has the most directorial flair, and the most interesting shot composition. And the strongest cinematography. And he's obviously backed up by, like, at this point, TNG, Voyager, DS9, this was a franchise that had been going for, 10 years? They had this down to a fine art. Which is 1987, right? So...
Yeah. Actually, no, yeah.
So
9
years.
9 years. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought it'd been longer by this point. It's only 9 years?
No, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so like 9 years of like this production. And I mean, obviously, if you want to trace it back to Wrath of Khan, you can. But like you got all your people, your principals, like you know, Louis Zimmerman, etc., Don Black, etc., who are just, they are masters at their craft. If you give them the task, they will do it perfectly. And just leveraging all of that to make a Star Trek horror movie, which, like, if you look at the rest of Frakes' filmography, he doesn't really have anything quite like that. Like, he has like Thunderbirds 2005 or whatever, and a few other things. It's like, but I think this might. Obviously, Frank, you'll disagree because you love Insurrection, and I guess what, I love Insurrection too. I think this is easily the most interesting film that Frakes ever directed.
It really is. I mean, in terms of just like the sheer composition and how it's a horror movie that doesn't lose track of what Star Trek is, but also is a PG-13 somehow. I tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of the distinction between Lord of the Rings and everything else Peter Jackson's done, but in the reverse, because this is very much like early Peter Jackson work, which was very horror focused. And like, if you're gonna approach that in a realm of like Star Trek, like, yeah. But the thing is, you have to portray the Borg like that, and you have to portray the Borg as sort of this unknowable cybernetic menace to the general audience. Like, which, to be fair, as TNG fans, you kind of had that assumed from Best of Both Worlds, from Q-Who, from like even Descent to a certain level. But like, you had this sort of body horror that was sort of shown a little bit but not implied. This implied it in a very way, and they could have done sort of the cheap way and just went, yeah, here's some people sort of getting their limbs torn off, but there was a directorial flair in this that, and especially, and I focus very much on the drill going into the eye lens. And who was it that said like no grapes were harmed in the filming of this movie? Like, yeah.
No, I agree with your point, Stars, completely. And Insurrection was largely outside, and Freaks didn't have a whole lot to work with here. It's a lot of sets, and there's outside stuff too. But he nailed it with the directing. He nailed it with the cinematography. He and his DP, he nailed it, getting the best performance out of these people who were excited to do it. And you're also right, Idol. This, like, Star Trek fans are going to go buy 2 tickets and go see it twice. You want the general audience to go, oh, this looks cool, and sit down and go, oh, the stakes are real high. These are like Terminators and they can't be stopped and they're going to kill us all. Wow. And you have to have the stakes of somebody has to die. Hawk died and a couple other people. So it's like, okay, there's real threats here.
Ensign Lynch. Okay, which brings me around to the point. Oh, sorry. Before I do that, anyone else?
Yes.
Go on.
Ronald D. Moore, for my money, is the best writer Star Trek ever had. You mentioned 3 names. Brandon Braga, 111 credits. Rick Berman, 50-some. And then Ronald D. Moore has like 64 credits. And, you know, it's easy to pile on those other 2 guys for reasons other than writing especially. But when you have that many credits, you're going to have a lot of bangers. You're going to have a lot of duds. Unless your name is Ronald D. Moore. I just looked through. He's only got like 3 duds out of 64 credits. And also Berman, all but 2 of his are written with someone else. So I wonder, like, if they wrote this in a Google Doc and they all use different font color, I would love to see who put what story notes in and who, like, put the little comment on the side that said, don't write this shit, and, like, overwrote it. Because that would be so fun to see who actually can... Because it's easy to say, oh, the guy I like did all the best parts, but you don't really know. As for directing, Frakes, yes, he's great. I wonder how involved he was with constructing the Enterprise E, because he did so many shots, multi-level shots in the missile silo, in engineering, going through corridors, literally dropping down through levels, and that's a lot of stuff you really couldn't do in the Enterprise D. Maybe engineering, you could do a little bit of that. So I wonder if he had any input when they're designing it. Be like, yeah, can you add some? At a level here we don't even need to see. We just need to see some dropping through it. Just because there was a lot of motion in his shots and in the people acting in his shots.
I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that it's such an interesting journey going from actor to director, because I have to imagine that gives you an incredible perspective of what you as an actor need and want from a director, and also what best enables your craft. Because when I'm thinking of, like you mentioned, like the way that the Enterprise E is designed, there's so much done for an actor to interact with. And I have to imagine that even if he wasn't like involved in like let's make the MSD like this, or like, you know, let's make the LCARs like this, I imagine there probably were notes of like, I would like to do a shot like this. Can you put a bit in main engineering set that looks like this?
Like, literally, like, has there been any other introduction of a new starship that has been utilized as well as there have been in First Contact? They don't just do the, like, right, here's the ship, spin it around, great, it's there. They put it in action. You get to fucking do an EV walk across the hull of it. You see the bridge. Sorry, this really goes. That was going to be my aside, but my next point of conversation was going to be the Borg Queen, because this is one of the most divisive parts of this film, and most of the divisive parts about the Borg in general is how you view the Borg Queen in this sort of situation, especially the little bit of retconning to the best of both worlds about how she knew Locutus. I yield the floor.
Overtired. Let's start with you.
Well, like, I think the Borg Queen works for the movie. I think when it gets out of the movie, that's where it's really a problem. I think, like, the flashbacks to Best of Both Worlds are, like, really confusing and hard to explain away, because it's just like,
you think in such three-dimensional
was she physically
terms.
there? Right, yeah.
So
just hand-wavy bullshit.
Well, so I have thoughts on that. So, like, when we were watching, we were talking about, like, the Queen works in this context solely if it's a case of we're in the 21st century, we don't have access to, like, the Borg transport conduit or to, like, the wider collective. We need a centralizing process so that we don't all lose cohesion. I think that makes perfect sense, right? And if Voyager hadn't done what it did, then that would be completely fine as it was. But we're taking it as it is. In terms of the three-dimensional, like, terms thing, I've seen some people interpret it as time travel, and I think that that's people, like, I think that's a bit of a reach of making it way more complicated than it has to be. I think there's way more significance in the fact of, like, she says, I can still hear our song, or whatever it was. I I don't think that the Borg Queen had to physically be there, and the shots of her with Locutus were not meant to be like
Rubbing his lips.
Yeah. That was for the dads in the audience, wasn't it? I always took that to be metaphorical, as a case of I was not physically there, but because I am the Borg and you were Borg and you were surrounded by Borg in a Borg ship, I was there with you as I am with every Borg. And I feel like that's kind of supported by stuff like Unimatrix Zero, where like there's that aspect of the group mind. So the best of both worlds stuff never bothered me as much when I ran it on that logic. That being said, it is just thrown at you, and Patrick Stewart just has to kind of give it legitimacy really quickly so that these two characters who have not met for an hour and a half can have a spirited discussion and a confrontation. Yeah. And that's a bit of a problem. And yeah, I think it is a case of the instant the Queen loses, it breaches containment and becomes just a figurehead of the Borg in general, that's a problem. When you have it as an isolated emergency case here, I think that makes perfect sense. But it's one of those things where I don't think that this movie is this movie's fault, but you can trace it back to this movie, if that makes sense.
I think
kind of like how.
I think
Overtired. Did you have any more thoughts on the Queen?
I don't know. It's like what Star's saying makes sense, and is like I kind of agree with all of that.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, the Borg Queen, like, you know, like, because it's just when you pull on that thread, it's like, it's what we like to do as Star Trek fans. How do we justify this? How, like, that's fun, but it's like, man, this is a lot of work. But it's only a problem to people like us that care enough to pull that thread. So, like, all
right, let's go back to a little bit of history of this film. So
this better be good, because people got a lot to say on the Borg Queen. I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, it is a thread. So talking about the sort of origins of this film, Rick Berman and Brandon Barger said they started talking about the places and times that this had been done on screen or had not been done on screen. Certain things they had crossed off about sort of like the origins of this film. Could they go back to the Roman Empire? That'd be cool in a lot of ways. No, but Picard in a toga, you wouldn't want to do that. Put him in a spacesuit, they said. And they started to think about the Borg in question. They started to sort of realise that these were horrific monsters. They were the Borg, and I quote, "We track them down to a castle near the village where nobleman runs a feudal society. We suspect the Borg are working in there, but no one can get in. So Data becomes our spy." Have we heard that thread before? Isn't there not thine own self? Is that not a very good Data story? Impersing an artist apprentice, Data becomes friends with Leonardo da Vinci, who at the time was working for the nobleman as a military engineer. Kind of sounds a bit Voyager / Assassin's Creed. You would have sword fights and phaser fights mixed together in 15th century Europe. A little bit Cupid. It risks become really campy and over the top. So they scrapped that. A revised storyline was constructed, this time called Star Trek Resurrection, which is actually the first time I heard about this film, utilising elements laid upon place by Gene Roddenberry's original concepts for the Star Trek universe and the Star Trek original series, second season's Metamorphosis, where we first see Zefram Cochrane. Resurrection closely resembled the final film. In the story, the Borg attack Zefram Cochrane's Montana laboratory, which we saw, severely injuring the scientists. With Dr. Crusher's fighting to save Cochrane's life, Captain Picard assumes his place in history, Bell's Riot style, rallying a town around reconstructing the damaged warship. As the action unfolded, Picard would have become romantically involved with a local photographer, an X-ray technician, which is wild to me because my wife is an X-ray technician, named Ruby, who helps the captain reconstruct a key element of the ship. Aboard the Enterprise, Commander Riker would be engaged in combat, invading the Borg drones. The Borg in Resurrection would remain faceless automatons. How would that have felt with sort of like the roles reversed, with Riker being the one on the Enterprise, sort of like fighting the Borg, and Picard essentially kind of almost being the archer in this sort of role.
That's Insurrection.
Yeah, a little bit.
Not wrong. Almost
That's
Nemesis.
that's Nemesis.
Yeah, Nemesis is a little bit like that as well. Yeah.
Generations. All
Yeah.
the other movies, Picard
Yeah.
fucks off the ship, and Riker's left in charge.
See, the problem I think is like, and what they identified is that you can put Picard in that role, and that makes sense. Because like, if you want to do a story about people in history and the making of man and stuff like that, sure, Picard can do that. But Riker versus the Borg, there's no real skin in that game. Because Riker, like, yes, he won in Best of Both Worlds, but guess what? He won. He did not lose anything. In fact, if anything, he came out a winner in Best of Both Worlds. And that's the thing, like, his personal arc doesn't really get fulfilled until like freaking Nemesis, arguably. But all he comes out of that as a winner with having like, I saved her, I saved Picard. I had to make some questions about myself in command, but there's not enough there to justify a rematch. But with Picard, there absolutely is. And it's one of those things where it's like the instant they cottoned on to the fact that you should just swap them, it's like, yeah, that's a way stronger story. Because you need someone like, because what would Riker have done? He would have just done generic action stuff on board the Enterprise. I do not think that you could, unless they maybe put like Troy at risk and maybe made that of it. But I don't know.
Again,
I feel like,
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. Do we really want to see that again? So I think they made absolutely the right choice. I think that Riker versus the Borg is, you do that once and he didn't lose anything, so you have to make it Picard, otherwise it makes no sense.
Yeah, and the Borg are more analogous to Picard's Khan. And
Yeah.
Star Trek keeps trying to remake Wrath of Khan, and you already did it for Picard with this movie.
Mm.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, they did try and do it again with like Nemesis. I remember the tagline Nemesis was like, "It's the next Wrath of Khan," and then they did. Then it was like, no, it's not. And then they went to Star Trek Into Darkness and went, "It's not Khan, but it's Khan." It's like, no. It did start the sort of like film trend with like, right, there has to be a Nemesis. There has to be ultimate evil. Like, so with First Contact, it was the Borg Queen. With Insurrection, it was Rafu. With Nemesis, it was Shinzon, and so forth, so forth. It started to take that slippery trend of Star Trek becoming a little bit tropey in the fact that it needs to be. And you and me, as stars, have been talking about this sort of like, it has to be a big bad on top of everything.
Yeah. So, there you go.
Since you brought it back around to Borg Queen, I want to share my thoughts on that. She doesn't work for me on any level. All right, so she has this sort of implicit understanding of humanity. She justs with Data early on, and then later with Picard. I think Idle mentioned like Asimovian abstractions of humanity, but if you go back through the history of the Borg, I'm not sure where that understanding comes in. In Best of Both Worlds, which is their second appearance, they assimilate Picard because they need a bridge to humanity. So they should have learned that from him, fine. But in the next episode, Borg, the A-plot is an ounce of individuality is so alien to them that it would destroy the Borg from within. Okay, so we've established they haven't really understood humanity yet. In Descent, which is the next one chronologically, we only get Borg separated from the collective. So we still haven't seen the collective tackle or understand humanity. And then really their next appearance is First Contact. So where is this overarching understanding coming from? I think they needed to pull on the Locutus thread earlier and say, okay, we from your bridge to humanity, we understand humanity better. I know they wanted to save like him interacting with her as the final because that's just movie structure, but I don't think it really works for the understanding of it. I don't like the way she's written, sarcastic and sexy. That is pretty much antithetical to the most unique villain to date in the Borg. But I actually really like how Data interacts and his journey through humanity, but it doesn't work with the Borg. The Borg is the last alien race I would pick to teach him those lessons. On the other hand, it makes for a great action movie, and Picard's storyline through there with the Borg really works well. So it clashes at a lot of different angles. Also, I think we can all agree I wanted to see Alice Krige as a crew member on the Enterprise get assimilated, and then she becomes a queen. That would have been way sweeter. So
Oh, this is why you like that. That was a concept in Regeneration, was that Alice Krige would be a medical tech
was
and get
it?
assimilated.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was gonna come back and play a
That would've
medical
been
tech
cool.
who would get assimilated, and then she would be a thing in that. So, I do have a counterpoint about the Borg Queen and about the Borg. So
For that.
Yes.
Real quick, if you established her as a crewman on the Enterprise, that would save you from having to tie back to Best of Both Worlds to make it personal for Picard.
That'd be cool.
And the fun thing is, you had that crewman sort of like, you had the two crewmen when the sort of environmental sort of problems started coming up and they sort of walked up the Jeffries tube. You had the female crewman walk up and, climb up on the ladder and get assimilated. Could have been Alice
it
Krige.
should have just been her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So in Gothic literature, there's like the concept of the sublime and the uncanny. And the uncanny is that which is very, very close to humanity, but not quite, that we recognize ourselves in, but shifted. And then the sublime is that which is ascended so far above humanity that it is no longer recognizable, and it can drive you mad to like the eldritch beings, for example, are considered sublime. And I think that hearing Idle talk about like the idea of the Leonardo da Vinci, like the Borg, like stalking around in our castle, I can kind of see it from that angle of them as Gothic villains, because like when you say a Gothic villain, like it summons things like, oh, vampires going through. It's like, that's not what Gothic literature is. Gothic literature is actually about the conflict within humanity and like the moving between states of humanity and our understanding of the taboo and what we recognize as acceptable behavior versus not. And I think from that lens, the Borg and the Borg Queen make perfect sense as antagonists. And it also ties back to like H.R. Geiger and ideas of like sexuality as alien and of like that othering perspective. And I think in that regard, it works for me because everything that the Borg Queen does is an affectation of humanity. Like, she performs sexuality. She performs all these like recognizable human behaviors. But there's this layer of artifice and of I don't care. Actually, I'm just manipulating you to get to a wider goal. And I think that's why, on some level, it works, because I don't think she actually gives a single shit about Data or anything else, but it's all just artifice to get at what she wants, because she is something so fundamentally inhuman that she can reach out to Data and appeal to him, but she is just so inscrutable and inhuman that, like, it's... I don't know, it's hard for me to describe, but that's part of the reason why it works for me, is because... She fits in that Gothic vein.
I get what you're going at, and I think it's sort of like the idea that sort of like humanity is sort of like corruption as sort of like assimilated through this sort of new lens. The Borg have no idea sort of how to sort of deal with Data and his ideals of humanity, so they will assimilate someone that might know. And I think this would like others say, like, this would have been good if someone had been assimilated with the crew rather than been this sort of like all-knowing Borg entity that had been there all the way. That's kind of where it falls apart a little bit for sort of most people, but I don't mind it because in my head I am still like in the I want like you can think of this film in two terms of like, okay, I am a long-standing Star Trek lore fan, and you guys know me, I'm a fucking lore nerd, but also on this sort of like terms of I want to watch a good film. And I think I apply this to so many films that I watch, especially with like Marvel films as well. Like, okay, we go through this whole like, how does this fit in the lore? But at the end of the day, am I watching a fucking good film? Yes, I am. And I kind of have to separate myself a little bit in regards to this, as much as I am a massive Star Trek film. And that how does the Borg Queen fit in this? And it gives us an antagonist that is very creepy. That has that level of implied sort of like surface level H.R. Geiger, Asimov kind of levels of sort of like surrealism that you might go, actually, this might get me interested in things like, the laws of robotics and, the concept of sexual humanity. What can I then read further into it? You can't dump things on the general audience in an hour and a half to make them question that on a deeper level, the way that TNG does on a weekly basis. But it kind of works for me in that way. So I don't mind the Borg Queen. What they did after that is a completely different story, when they went to Dark Frontier and they went to fucking Picard season 3, worst of all, where they just went, hey, nostalgia bait, fuck you. Essentially. Sorry, I'm rambling on. Before we go to
No,
Brett,
you're all good.
any other...
I
go.
I do actually have a question about the Borg Queen. So it only kind of just occurred to me, but like you have these two story elements of like the birth of the Federation and the Borg, right? And obviously like there's a thematic link there in terms of like the birth of a society that is so richly celebratory of the individual and of every individual's beauty, and then the enemy that wants to wipe that all away and just render everyone a useless identical drone. And I always thought, I'm thinking now, is it a missed opportunity not to connect them more obliquely by having, because if you think about it from like, say, Lily or Cochrane's point of view, coming out of a Third World War, I almost wonder if there might have been value in making the pitch, not necessarily at Data, or maybe not just at Data, but at maybe like a third person from the 21st century who had lost a lot, and was like, you know what? This cult of like the machine, where I don't have to think, I don't have to feel, I don't have to dwell on the people I've lost, I get to surrender to blissful eternity. Would that have been interesting? Is that a plot thread that they should have gone with, or do you think that's just something else? Because I feel like Voyager kind of touched on that with Seven and her trauma and the Raven and all that, but I almost wonder if it would have had a place here because of the stuff with the Third World War.
I think that dilutes the point of the Queen in the movie, which is to target Picard. And you say, she doesn't really care about Data. That's mostly true. They kind of set it up as she's using him to get to Picard. And I feel like if you introduce either someone else or change her focus to someone else, that dilutes what is, for me, the best part of the movie is the Picard Moby Dick storyline. So I would prefer not to see that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think there's room in the movie for that. I think that's its own movie.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Before we go on to Bread, I want to talk a little bit about Lily and sort of like the fish out of water audience analog for everything. Do you feel like that was accomplished successfully? Do you feel like Lily was the perfect translation for the audience to go like, what the fuck's going on? Hey, there's these cybernetic people. Oh my god, I've just walked into this 1920s. Like, oh my god, satin dress. What the fuck? Do you feel like Lily served a purpose like as an audience analog, or do you feel like she surpassed that point? Because I feel like there's an argument to say that she was only there to kind of introduce the new viewer to this future, or did she have an agency of her own?
I mean, I think she unquestionably has an agency of her own, because like by the time that she's introduced into the movie, we've already met the principal cast. We've already been introduced to what kind of like the central conflict is, and what the stakes are. The entirety of Earth. I think that even a average viewer will kind of understand what the stakes are, even if they don't understand the nitty gritty of it. Like, knowing that a phaser can disintegrate people isn't really essential to the film's plot. I think that her role as an emotional anchor is way more important. And I definitely see Otto's point about her kind of supplanting a potential role for Crusher here. But I do really think that as a character, she's very well sketched out, and I'm glad they didn't make it romantic like they were in the original drafts. Because that would, like you're talking about, like diluting things, it would have been shoehorning a romance in here would have been so terrible.
Oh yeah.
Like serving purely as like something a character for Picard to learn from and inspire in turn, that's a way more powerful statement. And I kind of wonder what the casting call looked like, because I'm curious if there was a significance to her being a black woman, or if it was a case of any.
They did say in the behind the scenes that she was the first choice.
Okay.
So I don't know if they wrote it specifically for her, but I think they had her, definitely had her in mind when writing the
That's cool.
character.
That's nice. I like that. There was no sort of specific sort of like race call for that. It was just like, right, we want Alfred Woodard. You know, it's.
I agree. She serves two purposes because she is directorially and writing wise, she is the blunt tool, so to speak, of which the non-fans, the general audience, views everything through. She is our eyes. But also, when you break down kind of the underlying story elements, I've said before, I feel like this movie is a 90-minute long therapy session for Picard to get over the things he needs to get over. And he is succumbing to the darkness, and he is not getting over it until he sees humanity through someone else's eyes, and he gets that from her. She becomes kind of his saving grace and allows him to go on some therapy that he needs again in a later show, but we'll get to that one day. And then that allows Picard to be that same thing for Data, who is completing the journey that we've watched him do for 9 years of, I want to be human. And this is the closest we ever see him become human, because he actually gets skin. And his emotion chip goes crazier than we thought it would in the previous movie. And for 0.68 seconds, he thought about being a shitbag, which is what it means to be human. And then he realized, nah. And so, she serves her purpose well for that. I think it's a crime that, other people might have had screen time or plot points taken away to serve that. Well, of course, but you're never going to get everything that everybody wants.
Okay.
So I'm glad you brought her up. Alfred Woodard is just fucking phenomenal in this movie. There's zero acting choices that I would change from her, or even writing. Maybe there's something with Cochran, there's something with Picard I would change. But when I think back on what she did in this movie, I don't think I would change a thing. She does serve the analog for the modern viewing audience well. And those scenes that I said, could we do Bev, just because Gates deserves better, frankly, in the entire run of movies, but I don't think they would have been better. Two specific things I think of when Picard sees her off in the escape pods, the whole "I need to go save my friend," that's a nice story point that would have gotten lost with Crusher, because she already knows why he has to stay behind.
Yeah.
And then when Picard loses it, what's the line? I will make them pay. And he's spittle flying out of his mouth. He would not go that far with Beverly because he loves and respects her, and he doesn't really love and respect Lily in this movie. She's a woman out of time that he doesn't really have a relationship with, and that enables him to go full bore on her, which is good for the movie's sake. But I guess the one nitpick I have is that she just understands him too quickly and too well, because a lot of the early scenes they have together is just them fleeing from and fighting the Borg. She also doesn't understand the hundreds of years in the future dynamic, and I think a lot of that is just kind of like transported, beamed into her character, and her understanding is a little bit higher than what I think would have necessarily come just from the scenes we see of them together. So that's really my only nitpick. But she
gets them from a very, to me, because that entire world is everybody there in Montana, straight PTSD from World War III. Yeah. And with the exception of being an alcoholic, Picard in this movie is PTSD. So she sees that and she's like, oh, well, this is everybody walking around that town.
Yeah, she's dealt with Zephyr for so long, so she's seen that kind of reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all in that line of and I think that Woodard plays it amazingly. Like, there's an inflection I love in it. you think you're the first person I've seen enjoy killing someone. I see it all the time, and it's like there's a degree of judgment in there. But I personally interpret it as like there's a degree of almost understanding of like, guess what? We've all had to do fucked up shit to survive. We've all had like petty grievances that went too far. I get it. And then he flies off the handle and she's like, okay, guess what? I had to drag you down to my level and remind you that guess what? You're 400 years in the future, but you're still acting out the same things we are. You are still the same fundamental human I am, despite 300 years of evolution. And I feel like that's part of the reason why she gets him so quickly. It's not because of like I think she is a fairly empathetic individual, but it's more just a case of like what Picard is going through is so very recognizable and universal to anyone who's gone through that kind of trauma. And that maybe also kind of adds credence to why it couldn't be Beverly, because like, we rag on the line of
I think she understands his backstory more than enough for what would be called in this episode. So
well, it's more just the cultural context of just like we rag on that season 1 line of what do you mean you have a headache? It's like 24th century human beings just have a very different understanding and conception of themselves.
You hate that line, don't you?
Because it's so stupid. Because it betrays a certain
the future.
Because it betrays a certain Roddenberry-esque self-superiority about what the world was going to be like and what humans were going to be like. Of no, human beings won't have personal conflict. It's like no, human beings by their nature have to have conflict. It's how they grow. And because like Beverly is from the same culture as Picard, she cannot engage with them in the same way. On the same level, yes, but in the same way, no. And I think that's part of the reason why, like, she's incredible in this. Like, I absolutely see why she was their first choice. Like, I can't think of anyone else who could have played this role nearly as well. Like, I would have absolutely loved to see like Gates try it with a Crusher-centric scene.
We do see that in
but it would be
Picard
very
season
different.
3. Like, you do have the Picard and Crusher calling it, and it's Crusher on the other end of it on this occasion when sort of hidden Jack for all these years. So it's you do get that, but yeah, in the perspective for the average, I always think for the average view, it has to be someone sort of fish out of water. Audience perspective has to be someone to call, and like everyone's saying, like, "What the fuck are you doing, Picard? Blow up the ship." And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Has an argument with Worf, and like Alfred Water, has to walk into the ready room and say like, "God damn it, Moby Dick, blow up the ship." Anyway, I think it's time. We have lingered along. We've been talking about this quite a bit. It's time to Bread, your moment of the episode that stood out to you the most, in the same way that Cisco saying Bread stuck out to us the most. Overtard, you are our honoured guest. What was your bread of the episode, or the episode of the film that stood out to you the most?
Oh God, I was hoping not to go first.
Welcome to the jungle, kid.
No. This is good. This is a fucking great film. You get the pick of the litter.
A moment that sticks with me, not necessarily for good reasons. I don't know.
For any reason, when do you think First Contact? You think of?
It is probably the moment with I did cite it earlier with Cochrane saying on the Earth that it's so small, and it's just like that's Star Trek. It's just like someone seeing possibilities, and just for someone post-world, and like again, like I feel like I'm overemphasizing it, but it's like this is post-World War III. Their world ended,
Yeah.
all of the post-apocalyptic fiction that's out there. It's like that's where they're living, and it doesn't dwell on it, but it's just like, you know, if for all we're no like they're just abiding time until they all die, you know, and it's like, you know, it's just like that's where hope comes for him. You know?
Mm.
Frank, your bread.
I will. I should have said you stole mine. No, I will say one. I don't think Otto will pick or stars. I'm going to say overall, like the cinematography slash directing of the entire movie was just chef's kiss. There's no bad shots. There's unique shots. It's you watch the whole thing and you're just constantly amazed, like, ooh, and how they did the Borg cream coming down and Data jumping down and the money shots of the new ship, which, like you said earlier, we all wanted, and they gave it to us immediately. And it's
This
just
defined shitport. Like, this is the
it
film
did
that went,
it did.
hey, not just a new Enterprise, you got an Akira, you got a Steamrunner, you got a Saber. They're all firing on the fucking board. Sorry, no, I'm superseding. No, go.
Well, no,
I'm inserting.
when I think First Contact, literally the one word that I use is gorgeous.
Mm.
So
Awesome. Okay. I mean, Auto.
So I'm just checking dates on some things. This is probably one of the less bready Star Trek properties for me. There's a lot of moments that you remember, but nothing that really encapsulates the episode for me. I'm going to go, there's an image that plays a lot in my head when I think about this episode. It's actually just the little sphere leaving the Borg cube with a moment to spare before it blows up. It's just a neat little... Like, you never see escape pods from other species, and this is just it's a fun little thing, because they've already established, how powerful spheres are on their own. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just the little escape hatch opening and it floating away is just, I don't know. That sticks in my head. Bread.
Oh, bread. Stars.
Something you wouldn't get with 30 times the budget of an episode.
It's true.
Stars gives you bread.
I'm gonna have to be greedy here, and I'm gonna have to pick 2 slices of bread.
How dare you.
I'm gonna justify it by piggybacking off of Auto's, because
You don't need to justify it. It's your episode, Pig. You can do whatever you want with it.
That's true. So it's like a few seconds after we see the sphere exit, and it's like the long shot of the cube exploding, and just like watching all the individual ships and what they're doing. Like, there's one ship that gets caught up in the explosion and blows up after, which I always think is a fucking bummer for those guys.
Absolutely, fuck you. At the end, there's like, no, we defeat the Borg cube, but fuck you.
Yeah. But the bit that always kind of sticks out of my mind that I always go, oh, that's a good little bit of flair, is the Akira that comes out toward the camera and does little flyby with the and just as if to put an underscore of that's how close we came. There's just this little flourish by ILM of the cube is gone. We were seconds away, and I just love that. It sticks in my brain, and I can play it in my head right now. The other bit of bread would be the moment when Assimilated Hawk comes back, and he's got Picard prone on the deflected dish thing, and he's looking not and he's looking in this odd way of just full body to the right while he's got Picard dead to rights.
Straight, but his head is to the right, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you've got the fucked up. You can't even tell how much of him has been converted already, and it has happened that quickly. It's yes, that's how quickly it happens, and that's how quickly it takes hold.
Very good.
It really struck me this time around. I could bread every moment in this movie if I wanted to, but in this particular playthrough, those 2 really stuck out in my mind.
Star Trek first bread,
and second bread.
Second bread. I am gonna go for just the pure amazingness of you're going to introduce your hero ship. So the Enterprise D got destroyed. How
I
are we
might
gonna-
have known.
How are we going to introduce our new starship? Just by this pure, amazing pan around this fucking sexy, sleek, sovereign-looking ship behind a nebula as it pans across. Not just that, you get it fly into the camera, and then you get it to engage in combat. It saves the Defiant. It just looks good. S-tier class, sovereign class vessel. That is my bread of this film. It's so I am a simple man. I see sovereign class ships. I vote bread. Okay, let's go for some best and worst.
The best advice I can give you is to just be yourself.
You're the worst thing that ever happened to Zek. You're the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Actually, that's the second best piece of advice.
In fact, you're the worst thing that ever happened to the entire Ferengi Alliance.
No.
Just stop saying that.
You're so proud of yourself for that one, aren't you?
I told you one of these days I was going to change that, and this was the best moment to do it. Best and worst moment of the episode. Overtime, what was your best and worst moments of this episode, please?
I'd say the best moment is the scene with Lily and Picard in the ready room, because that's so good. Worst moment is, what is the Borg's initial plan, and how do they settle on time travel, and just all those questions. But that's, the answer is because we need the plot to happen. So
Frank, best and worst.
I won't steal the ones I know you're going to make. For me,
What's the point of going second if you can't just steal everyone else's? Come on, Frank.
I want to be kind. When I think of this movie and I smile at the introduction of Cochrane in the bar with Troy and Riker. That entire series, like single camera shot for a second, and Riker's reactions to everything. It's slapstick, and you could do it outside of Star Trek and it would be laugh track central. It was really good. The worst, I mean, it's hard to find something in this movie you could cut. Yes, I know I said it's my fourth favorite Star Trek movie, but it's a very lean, it's a well done, well-oiled machine. However, at the very end, the kiss Picard plants on Lily, no, that does not fit. That does not work. That's out of character.
He's French. It's
No.
Can I tell you a story? When, because my wife has some connections with people in France, so I went out there with her to meet some of her friends. I used to have long hair back then, glorious long hair, and I walked into a room and I was silhouetted, and this guy came over. It's like, bonjour, kiss me on both cheeks, and it's like, you are a man, does not matter. That is a very it's a French greeting. Picard is, hey. Okay, I've got to pick the next person to do this. Okay.
The thought of you with hair did that to all of us.
Hey, I've never shown you the pictures. Okay, that's fine.
No, I've seen them.
Yeah, I will go next. Best moment, and I am still gonna give this to the Enterprise E being revealed for the first time as just this amazing sovereign class vessel, just being a beautiful ship. And the bonus point to the cinematographers have been taking every gorgeous angle, because we've seen, like, remember when the Discovery was first unveiled, and we looked at them, we just went, oh, that's kind of a little bit hideous. But it took like a few episodes for them to sort of reveal it in action, and the Titan A or Enterprise G at the time being revealed were a bit like, but you have to see it in motion. We saw the Enterprise E in motion for the very first time. They took every good angle of that ship. That is my best moment of this film. Worst moment is going to be Data flying down from the upper echelons of the Phoenix sort of launch bay is a very sort of cheap ILM sort of like, right, let's take this image and just zoom it. this is only going to be 2 seconds, but like we noticed, we saw it was there. In which case, stars, best worst.
All right. In which case, I'm gonna go with my worst moment, since you stole mine. Is the lack of anything substantial for Beverly to do. I'm not going to go ahead and say that. I'm not going to go ahead and say that Troy had the most to do, but I quote, "We don't have time to talk about time." To this day, I think that is a showcase of just how fucking funny Marina Sirtis is. And Gates did not get anything like that.
I think ability to just sober up in the space of like 3 hours is amazing.
Listen, they're built different. I like the scene with her and the EMH, but guess what? That's the EMH's scene. It's not Gates' scene. She deserves something. She deserved better from all the movies, and I'm because season 3 kind of did that back in due, but it's glaring that everyone else has something substantial but her. Best. Guess what? The rest of the fucking movie. I kept on trying to think of like, what do I like more? Do I like the Battle of Sector 001, where you've got all this really economical storytelling with just the ship models and all these new designs that have fueled like Starfleet lore nerds for decades, and just like, do I talk about Jerry Goldsmith's fucking incredible score from beginning to end with all of his little Vija twangs and the Klingon theme? Do I talk about Patrick Stewart giving a absolutely S++ performance that like everyone else is standing around going, Jesus Christ, I want to be as good of an actor as you? While Alfred Woodard also gives an S++ performance. Do I talk about the effects work? Do I talk about the zero-G combat scene? Do I talk about like the final meeting between like the humans and the Vulcans? Do I talk about how fun Cochrane is? Do I talk about how every little bit of this has some love to it? And I just the rest of the movie, man. I can't pick it. It's perfect to me. It's perfect. Apart from that one thing that still was the worst, but guess what? It's still perfect.
I like this. Like,
the worst.
Yeah, I like this. Like, right, pick your best moment, and you're the last to go. It's like, right, the rest of the film. Like, such a cop-out answer. Okay, let's go for.
It's my draft pick. I'm allowed to.
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5. Associational rating norm -3.
That's much too low a rating.
I was not accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
Stars, this is your film. This is your pick. What is going to be your rating code that has to be different from your pre-rating code?
Oh, I'm not worried about that.
The watch along with us for the what was it? The
how many flecks of space dust coming off of the maglocks?
Yeah, can't be that.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. I've got 4 other ones. I can't. I think I have one I want to settle on. But it's hard.
How many unhinged presenters of this show about this film out of 10?
You can't ask me to be normal about this movie. It's just not natural. I think I'm going to settle on this one because it's going to stick with me. How many films were 30 episodes budgets out of 10?
Fair enough.
My alternatives were how many grand piano escape pods out of 10? How many criticisms of counseling techniques out of 10?
Shouldn't they make grandma pianos?
Grandma pianos.
We can't joke about the grand pianos. One killed that guy's mom. We can't talk about that.
And I also had how many sticks of Borg Queen lipstick out of 10. But
that's good. I like that.
But I think it's how many films worth 30 episodes budgets out of 10?
So how many films? So you have to rate this. How many films worth 30 episodes out of 10? Out of 10.
How many 30 episodes budgets? Yes.
Okay. Frank, start us off.
Boy, start with the lowest. Here you go. You can only go up from here, boys. I am not being contrarian, and I'm not memeing when I do this. It's a great film. It's a great time. I enjoy watching it every time I see it. I enjoyed the time we had today. That said, it has some plot holes that I can pilot the Enterprise F through. And
boy, that's a long plot hole, a very long, thin plot hole.
Yes.
Oh no, I'm thinking of the G, right? The J. What's that one that looks like it was made in the stretch tool?
The J.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that being said, I will bump it up because it is the 8th Star Trek film, and I will give this 8 movies worth of 30 episodes budget that was spent, I think, appropriately. I don't think Frakes did it with hookers and blow. Out of 10.
You spent too much time
I
in
think.
Vegas, Frank.
That's absolutely not.
Not enough. Yeah.
As I look out the window right now. No. What?
Okay, Overtard, give us your rating, please.
I would give it 9 30 times episode budget out of 10. I watched this maybe 6 months ago, and the Borg Queen, it's just how on for data she is, really stood out to me. Didn't stand out to me much watching it with people, so bumping it up there. But yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good Star Trek movie. So
9 out of 10.
Some, the problems of what was the Borg's plan is such a fun thing that even as a problem, it's fun. So
okay,
I can't hold that against it too much.
Just so we don't have 2 amazing ratings in a row, I'm going to go next. I am going to give this. So I love this film. I have such an emotional reaction to this film because it is absolutely is the time as I massively got into Trek. Like I say, my history with Trek is that my mum and dad divorced, so I used to go to my dad, and we used to sit and watch Trek together. That's how we used to bond, and then best of both worlds happened, and we got very excited about that, and he got VHSs imported from the Americas just so we could watch that sequel in time, and we had a very bonding moment over it. So when First Contact came out, and we went to the cinema to see it together, and it was a very emotional point in my life, and it's sort of it got me into starship porn in a very, very good way because the Sovereign was gorgeous. But not just that, we had the Akira, we had all this new, I've read the Art of First Contact and Generations book and seeing the design of the various ships that sort of they came together that ended up sort of influencing the ships that appeared on screen was amazing, and that's influenced things in the future. This is a very, very fucking good film. I can excuse stuff like the Borg Queen because it was entertaining, and as I've grown older, I can appreciate the fact that you want to make an entertaining film for the masses, and if you're going to introduce anyone into Star Trek, watch First Contact. Watch the Wrath of Khan or watch First Contact. Those are the 2 options. Or The Voyage Home. Actually, I will say The Voyage Home. If you want to be a bit pedestrian and say okay, watch these fucking kooks in 1980s America, fine. But it's just such a fucking entertaining film. I will, like Star says, this is his comfort film. This is mine too. If I can't decide which Star Trek film to watch, I'll tell you what, it's not going to be Nemesis. It's going to be this. If I see it on the DVD shelf, let's. And the fact that I sat and watched it with my 10-year-old son, who is not he's not a big sort of he like me, he has the same amount of ADHD. But he sat down and watched it and went, fuck, I enjoyed that. It's 10.1 out of 10. I'm gonna make that difference.
Wow.
I'm gonna push the 0.1 because of how much I love this film. I'm not gonna say 11. I'm gonna put the 0.1 because I know there's gonna be a differential here. So Auto, please.
Wait, so why didn't you draft this? Because it was sitting there for 2 rounds.
Because Turnabout Intruder was there.
Oh, okay. And he's just secured another appearance next week on Trek. Way to go, Overtired.
Just trying to curry popular opinion. I see what you're doing, Overtired.
Idle.
I get your
Idle.
game.
Eyes of the camera. 10.1 what?
Okay.
No.
Come on then, Auto, big man.
All right. My worst of this episode, since I was unceremoniously skipped over, it's
Were
the
you?
Borg
Sorry.
Queen. For twofold reasons. One, because I think it doesn't particularly work for large elements of this movie. And then, yes, what it does to the Borg ad infinitum. My best moment is going to be Picard's arc throughout this series, or throughout the movie, rather. The actual quote, which they kind of bastardized, I wish they would have just stuck with a quote, or at least the part of it that he read from Moby Dick. All that most maddens and torments, all that stirs up the lees of things, all truth with malice in it, all the cracks that sinews and cakes the brain, all the subtle demonisms of life and thought, all evil to crazy Ahab were visibly personified and made practically assailable in Moby Dick. He piled upon the whale's white hump the sum of all the general rage and hate felt by his whole race from Adam down. And then, as if his chest had become a mortar, he burst his hot heart's shell upon it. Just the visual language of that is so intense. And Star Trek does a lot of Moby Dick episodes, and I feel like I just don't like that trope in general. If you're going to do it, read that section and then write your script. And the arc for Picard in this is sublime. They start small and they end huge, from him knowing exactly what's going on because he's so intimately familiar with the Borg, to finally that final line read of, "I will make them pay." It looks like he's wearing a skin suit, the way his teeth rattle and his cheeks shake as he delivers that line. And I've seen him in 150 different episodes before this. He's never approached that level of emotion and rage. So that is easily my favorite part of this movie. They absolutely nail it. That being said, for my rating, this was easily the least I think I've enjoyed this movie. Partly, and I shouldn't say this because it kills the gimmick, partly because people were just loudly talking over 95% of it. And it's hard to digest a movie when that happens. It's not a call on anyone in particular. It's just hard to do that. And I told Stars this is probably going to be the first time I watched this with a critical eye. And I just, there were so many, there's plot holes, there's multiple retcons. A lot of the things that they do to pander to the general audience, I don't particularly like, because I'm a diehard Star Trek fan. I've got a whole list that I'm not going to go through, but partly because it's 3 times longer than an episode, so you're just going to have more nitpicks. I'm going to give this, and I would give it higher, I think, if I watched it alone. So, but I've got to give what I felt watching this one. I'm going to give this 7.5. No, I'm sorry, 7.4 movies.
Oh, that last-minute redaction.
Worth 30 episodes of budget out of 10. I think it is a great movie, but it just, I don't know. I think there's just too many things that appeal to mass market versus appeal to what tugs at my Star Trek heartstrings. So,
give in to your hate. Give in to your anger. Yes,
I would
do
just like
it.
to formally apologise for skipping you over the best and worst. I do.
I'm going to get my shit in whether you like it or not.
I appreciate it. All right, Stars, take us home.
Like I said, it's impossible for me to be objective about this movie. I have to hold up my hands and say that, like, it's a part of me. I can no more divorce this from my understanding of Star Trek than I can divorce my understanding of love for my parents. It is essential to my love for Star Trek, this movie. My understanding of, like, it's exactly the same with Wrath of Khan, where it's like they are fundamental to my understanding of certain emotional states in life. It's a genuine comfort to me every time I watch it. I can quote it ad infinitum. I register that it's flawed. I register that there are parts of it that would, lead to ruin in other parts of the franchise, arguably. But in the end, I love it. And I don't mean I like it a lot. I mean, I genuinely, really, with all my heart, love it. This has a very special place in my heart, and it's a genuine joy every time I get to watch it for the first time with someone, because I get to hear the excitement in their voice. I get to hear the thrill as they realize where Star Trek is going for the first time in a lot of this movie. And getting even just a little bit of that vicarious feeling is just, it's like catnip to me, because it's a reminder of what it was like the first time, of that mythic first time. Like I said, I can't be objective about it, so I have to give a non-objective rating of 11 films worth 30 episodes budgets out of 10. It's off the scale for me. Everything else, like, guess what? Wrath of Khan will get a similar treatment. I cannot be objective about it. It was my 3rd round draft pick for a reason. I just love it too much. I can't be objective.
I think, Stars, this is your first time going over the 10 threshold. You've definitely gone minus figures, but I think...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, at the end of that takes First Contact to a 9.1 after everyone's reviewed it. Believe it or not, we've reviewed reviewed First Contact less than Spock Amok, which was a 9.3.
Now look at me. What did I give that?
Extreme
What
risk.
did I give? What did I give Spock Amok?
I will hang on.
You get like a 7, I think, or a 6.
Hang on, no, that's Lower Decks. Hang on, Spock.
Okay, forget it. What else does it rate up?
Auto, you gave it a 7. So okay. You're okay. You're
so
justified.
I like the movie better. There you go.
Is he not merciful?
Regardless. So Counterpoint, we gave a 9.3. Extreme Risk, we gave a 9.3. The Way of the Warrior, we gave slightly more. But the Stranger Worlds pilot was less. The Stranger Worlds season 1 finale, Quality of Mercy, less. Stigma, 8.9. So it is in high quality. This is up there with Star Trek film and episode royalty. It is definitely an absolutely amazing episode. I would like to thank our esteemed guest, Overtired. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for everyone in chat for replacing Overtired this week. Thankfully, you managed to employ some people to help you out here. We
appreciate the assist.
We do. We will be back soon. Please keep an eye out on the Discord and on the YouTube channel for our next watch along and other features coming soon. So, from myself and everyone else here, live long and prosper and stay assimilated. Bye-bye.
Next time on Star Trek The Next Generation, Captain Picard is secretly kidnapped and replaced by an alien imposter.
That's not the captain I know.
While the real captain is trapped with savage prisoners.
We are not the enemy.
The imposter is leading the ship into disaster.
You are endangering...
So, this is what we've decided. Lisa gets you Tuesdays and Fridays. I get you Mondays and Thursdays. We, alternate Wednesdays and weekends.
Hold on, I don't think I'm old enough to hear this kind of thing. Ladies, good day. Romano, good luck. You can return my car in the morning. If you can still drive, I'm taking the bus.